All right. Well, welcome everybody to the April 2019 J-Teen webinar. Today featuring Gali Cooks, President and CEO of Leading Edge. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Gali in just a second and then introduce our session. But I did want to give a couple of membership updates. Might as well share exciting news with everybody. So as of today, we officially have 52 organizations that are now part of the J-Teen network. Yay! As of February, when we launched, we had about 26, 27 organizations that were actively participating in the membership. And now we have brought on quite a few more, including some incredible partner organizations who are working with us to create products, programs, and opportunities, initiatives that we can pass along to our teen communities. And of those 52 organizations, we have 58 professionals who represent them. Some organizations have a couple of professionals in the network. So very, very excited that we are moving along and forging ahead with this relaunch and initiative. Also wanted to make just a real quick plug about the conference that's coming up. As you know, you've gotten emails from me, you've seen it on Facebook, I'm sure. Our conference coming up June 2nd through the 4th in Houston, Texas. Danielle Alexander is the conference chair and hostess with the mostest out in Houston. And from now through Pesach, we kind of discounted, we brought our early bird back to give you a Pesach present, if you will, of $180 for members to join us at the conference. And we do have some subsidy dollars if there are some finances that are getting in the way of your participation. So that is the plug for who we are, how we're doing, and the conference also. Back to Gali now. So real quick, I'm going to introduce you if that's okay, Gali.
Yeah, great.
Okay, perfect. So as I said, Gali is the president and CEO of Leading Edge, an organization formed in 2014 by foundations and federations to influence, inspire, and enable dramatic change in attracting, developing, and retaining top talent for Jewish organizations. Gali's professional experience spans the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Her career began as a speechwriter at the Embassy of Israel and a legislative assistant at AIPAC. She then joined the Harold Grinspoon Foundation as founding director of PJ Library. That was awesome to hear. From 2007 to 2013, Gali was executive director for the Rita Stanley Kaplan Family Foundation. In the private sector, she was VP of operations at an education technology startup. And most recently, she was the director of business operations at the youth division of URJ. Gali now serves on the board of Keshet, holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a master's from NYU Stern School of Business. And in 2016, she was named one of the Forward 50, an annual list of the top 50 Jews influencing American life for her efforts to build the next generation of leaders. Without further ado, I present to you Gali Cooks, who's going to share with us the state of talent in our community.
Well, all right. I need to pare down that bio because Jesus, you really went for it. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you on the eve of, I would assume also for this group, hopefully some respite, spring break, something, not only Chag and hopefully some meaningful seders and time with family. So today, what I was hoping that we would do, since this is an intimate group and we have a little bit of time, would it be okay if maybe we whipped around the virtual room and just you say your name, where you're from, and I guess how long you've been connected with JT and how that connection came. And then I'll be able to anchor my comments maybe in a way that's more material.
Perfect. So I'm going to call on each of you, and then I'll unmute you as we go, so you can just sit back and enjoy. All right, so we'll start with Jen. Can you hear me, Jen?
Yes. Hi.
Hello.
I'm participating by phone. I'm Jen Schwartz. I'm from Phoenix. I am the founder of an initiative called JT and Connect AZ, which basically is a hub of all the teen programs in our community, trying to raise awareness about what's going on for teens in the community, and engage and inspire new teens and engage and inspire professionals to sort of elevate their game and increase program quality.
And I will say that Jen is doing this as a volunteer at this point. So bravo for all the work that you've put in. I know the community is going to have a high payoff in the very near future.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Lisa.
Hi, I am Lisa Mickley from the Online Judaic Studies Consortium. We are a program that provides online courses to Jewish schools and programs. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. All right. Hold on. Susan, I'm trying to unmute. There you go.
I got you. Hi, I'm Susan Weiss. I am the Executive Director of the Board of Jewish Education of Atlantic County, which is southern part of New Jersey, near Atlantic City. As part of that, I'm the director of our community Hebrew high school called Kulanu, School of Jewish Studies. And also as a shout out, I'm the administrator of our PJ library in our community as well. So I really have the pleasure of working with kids from 0 to 18.
Thank you. All right, Megan.
All right. Hi, I'm Megan Harkavy. I am the director of the Consolidated High School of Jewish Studies in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are an 8th through 12th grade program that's consolidated between a Reform and Conservative synagogue with a few other teams that are not affiliated. And I've been in this position since, I've been in Charlotte since last fall and started last January. So it's been almost a year and a half since I've taken on this.
Thank you. And Arnie.
Hi, I'm the title is Director of Congregational Jewish Living at Congregation Gates of Heaven in Schenectady, New York. Basically, I'm in charge of all the education from preschool all the way through adult education, including our high school program.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. And we have Fred.
Hi, Fred Nagler from the Bergen County High School of Jewish Studies, an 8th through 12th grade program in Bergen County, northern part of New Jersey. I've been with JT and its predecessor, Nacha, since the very beginning. I really have been with the school, with the exception of 5 years, we're in between, for 32 years.
Yeah, he retired and then returned. Thanks, Fred. All right, and Danielle, one of Gali's biggest fans.
Oh,
yeah.
Same. Danielle.
Hi, Danielle Alexander. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm the director of Kahila High, our community 8th through 12th grade program that is a partnership between 2 conservative congregations and 1 reform, and is also open to teens who are not affiliated with the 3 congregations.
Amazing.
Yes.
I think I got everybody. I see a few on my screen. I just want to make sure. Yep, I think I got everybody. So it looks like those who are actually on the call primarily represent the Hebrew High contingency with the addition of Lisa and Jen, who have more community-based sorts of initiatives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Very helpful and really a pleasure to be in this this space together. So what Erica asked me to speak about is, as we've been doing the work of Leading Edge over the last 4 years or so, and it's kind of crazy to think that it's already been already been 4 years, we've been learning a great deal about what we're seeing not only in individual communities, but really across the tapestry of the United States. And now we're working with outside of the United States of different Jewish organizations. And what we're seeing are a lot of shifts that are also working in tandem with just society in general, the changing nature of work, how there are certain things that are really part of our daily life now that weren't the case in 20th century living, whether it's information and social media, whether it's the different ways in which we affiliate and join or don't join. And wanted to share with all of you some of the, sorry about that, some of what we're seeing really through the lens of one of our keystone programs, which is an employee experience survey. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have a PowerPoint deck. As Danielle knows, since we spent some time over the summer, PowerPoint is like I think in PowerPoint. So for anyone who hates it, I apologize. For anyone who likes it, bless you. And I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see the orange? We like the orange. All right, and I invite as we go into this for the next half hour or so. Please do just chime in either through Erica, however you want to moderate. As we see the different pieces of our work, we're always really interested in seeing how what we are seeing on a meta level is jiving with what you're seeing in a school level, a local level, and also through your career level. I mean, we've got people here who've really seen a lot and experienced a great deal, and always wondering how that jives. So let me move my cursor here. Okay, so on the big level, Erica mentioned that Leading Edge was created as a new organization. Actually, the first 2 years that we were doing this, we didn't know if we should be existing, honestly. Wanted to make sure that there was a demonstrated demand and need and value to what we were doing. So I want to go into why we were created and some of the undergirding issues we're working on, and then share what we're learning as a result. So the big why really comes to what I think has been referred to at times like as the leadership cliff. You know, we're so good in the Jewish community at crises, so it's the leadership crisis, which I remember when I was interviewing for this position, I was like, and it's the leadership opportunity, isn't it? So let's reframe that from challenge to opportunity. But basically what we are seeing in the Jewish community is part of a larger trend, especially in the United States, as we look at just demographic shifts. So if we look at like our entire community from an organization perspective in the United States, there are 9,500 Jewish organizations. That's by some counts. A third of those are congregations, so synagogues, and overwhelmingly small. Like we're talking 8 full-time employees is like the average size of a Jewish organization. So we're like a small business administration in many ways. And what a group of funders, really my founding partners really in this, and really the people who came to this well before I did, were seeing that because we have different demographics and really it's the aging of certain generations, the boomers being the most prominent, who are aging and have reached the acme of their careers and really the highest levels of different executive positions. They're retiring and in some cases choosing to leave just in general. And a lot of times it's not always retiring, it's also burning out. Let's call it what it is. There's just an overwhelming churn in the C-suite. And what the funder saw was like, you know what, we're having a really hard time filling these seats. And that means that an organization is actually quite vulnerable. And what they did was they went and they said, okay, well, let's ask the people. And they had about 180 interviews that Bridgespan, a nonprofit consulting firm, went and did these type of interviews. And they're like, why? Why is it so hard to find leaders for these positions? Ostensibly, some of the meatiest ones, some that pay quite well. So like, what is happening here? And they came out with 2 themes after about 180 interviews. They said, actually, guys, like, let's just understand what's happening here. There is a pipeline of professionals who work in our organizations, and they're not all leaders, about 80,000 of them who are at various stages within our organizations, and we are not developing them. We are not giving them the operations to stretch and grow. So even the ones who are within our communities saying, pick me to be the head of school or the head of the camp or whatever, we've not given them an opportunity to really hone some of those skills that are necessary to become a successful leader. The second has to do with our really like our image as a sector. And this one really spoke to me because when we started the PJ Library, one of the things that became incredibly clear was if the quality of the books did not compete with the non-Jewish books on the shelf, the kid would never want to read it. So the quality of the job at a Jewish organization and the environment that we create has to compete with the other sort of socially minded, non-profity sort of jobs that amazing talent, and this on the phone, you all chose to work in the Jewish community. You didn't have to. So what was the thing that drew you in? And Bridgespan essentially discovered that value proposition, that thing that's attracting us is kind of lackluster. And there are a lot of people who are very much connected to our community, and they're saying, you know what? I don't need the politics. I don't need the bureaucracy. I don't need the risk aversion, whatever it is that's pejorative. This is somehow, that's the image of our community. And so Leading Edge was created really to help build this pipeline. And we do it in 3 ways. And this is really an entree into our learnings. So one is by supporting new CEOs, because really a great organization starts at the top. The second is with a lay professional partnership. And when we like to say it's when this partnership works, 1 + 1 = 3. When it doesn't, 1 - 1 = -4,000. I mean, it can be incredibly disruptive. So how can we nurture that relationship for the betterment of our organization and community? And the third is culture. And by culture, really we mean the place in which the policies, practices, and procedures that are inherent in how things get done in an organization. Now, as we've been doing our work, this is really where, as Erica and I were preparing for this, I was like, look, really the core of our work centers on 3 G's: gender, generation, and geography. If we really look at the different learnings and the different pieces of our work. And so I wanted to share three themes really that I see inherent in this. One is our sector is made up of women, but led by men, if we're talking about gender. So in terms of our culture work, our hypothesis is attracting and retaining great talent really starts with being a great place to work, like how we actually do the work and how you're spending the majority of your waking hours. And there's actually a Great Place to Work Institute, which, by the way, is incredibly litigious. So anytime we say Great Place to Work Institute, you need to have the little trademark circle or whatever. So it was founded by several guys, and they were like, look, basically what a great place to work is, it hinges upon trusting the people you work for, so your managers, your bosses, having pride in what you do, and really enjoying the people that you work with. There are a lot of actually questions around employee satisfaction that ask pretty soft questions, like, do you have a good friend at work? And those types of questions are incredibly important because it shows the level of psychological safety really and trust that you have within your team. So as we've been learning about, what is a great place to work, we came up with our own definition based on a literature review. And there are 5 buckets, 5 real key aspects to what we call a leading place to work. Starting with trusted leaders, you need to be really galvanized around a common purpose. Employees need to be entrusted and trusted. So really respect going across and throughout the organization. There needs to be a real focus on talent development. We as people are not finished products ever. When we stop learning, that's when we stop growing. That's when we stop. So how can you build that into a workplace? And then and really the remuneration, the real more black on white, how are we actually showing the value of our people through salary and benefits? So as we've been thinking about going back to this theme, we've now worked with about 145 organizations and asked different employees, about 10,000 unique employees, Are you satisfied in your work? Are you engaged in your work? Are you able to do your work? And so I just want to come into the our last year's survey, and this year we're about to do another kind of census diagnostic. So this is what we see as like a pretty like a variety pack of our community, if you will. We had last year about 105 organizations take our survey, and from a makeup perspective, we had a nice age range with the plurality being 20 to 39-year-olds. So really, like, we're talking like this is the pipeline in so many ways, and you can see some of the gender distribution. And one of the things that we learned as we learned about just like how does gender play into this, and just to go back to the previous slide, there's overwhelmingly women who make up our sector, and again, there are about 10,000 employees that are part of this data set. And yet, when we look at who leads our organizations, what was interesting is to see that the previous stat is flipped. So when you have about, let me go back, about 60% identify themselves as female, about 22% as male, the 18% that's not listed or prefer not to answer, we believe that that's overwhelmingly female, and these are the least engaged and least satisfied and most miserable employees, because when you look at their, they don't want to be identified. So they're not going to give any sort of demographic identifiers. And then when you look at who is leading our organizations, it's overwhelmingly men. And my team was kind of interested to see, well, what's happening here? And what they saw was that there really is there's not only a difference between what is the level of how the gender is distributed across the hierarchy of organizations, but even the title of what we call women in leadership positions versus men. And what we found that overwhelmingly women are known as executive director and men are known as CEO. And the biggest discovery there was of the same size organization. So it's not that men only lead, large organizations, which are more complex and therefore and have more assets and therefore should be called, CEOs. That's kind of interesting. Are you raising your hand, Fred, or? Oh, you're muted, Erica. Maybe.
I'm muted. Yeah, the president, CEO, and director, is that in order of what's thought hierarchy?
Yeah, basically.
Highest?
Yeah, basically. Even though like this title is the senior most professional at an organization. So you could have executive vice president be that. We know of certain organizations that have that. But for some reason, as part of like the shift from nonprofit sector, which, in our community, there were educators, social workers who entered our field, and then the names of nonprofit executives were usually executive director. There has been a shift to CEO as there's been more of a professionalization and corporate nature really of the nonprofit sector, which is not unique to the Jewish space, by the way. It's really what we see writ large. So that's one thing that we pulled out that was kind of interesting. The other thing that we saw, and this goes more to generation, I would say, and again, there's always a gender play because so much of our workplace are made up of women, is that we saw that employees are just not given the opportunities to develop into leaders, and that really does affirm what Bridgespan in that original report showed. So there's good news and bad news here in that from an attraction perspective, we know that our employees are fueled by mission like no other sector. Like we have a stable of organizational development psychologists who work with us, and they were like, how in the world does 91% of the 10,000 employees who have taken this survey know how their work contributes to their organization's mission, strategy, and goals? Like that's everyone from literally like a lifeguard at a JCC to certainly management. It's really magical. Like, and that's a testament to our sector. I think there's a real magic there. And more so when we look at generation, there's a real aspect of an asset of this is a real value, because when we look at the workforce, and this doesn't even account for Gen Z that you all are working with right now, that millennials really hunger purpose. This is the first generation that, when faced with a choice, especially when it comes to career, to consumer decisions, they will choose meaning over money. And we have mission, we have meaning, and that's amazing. And that's the thing that's making this aspect of people feel really proud to do the work in a really, really visceral way. So we got all these people who are like, I want to be part of the community, and we're not developing them in a way that is incredibly fundamental. So one of the aspects of a great place to work is just internal, open and honest communications. You know, we don't make widgets, we shape lives. We offer programs and services to people, and people are not robots, thank God. And that means that information is really our currency. And communication from the top down in particular is very, very, very important and necessary to do our job. And what we found, again, this is from a data set of about 10,000 employees, that, you know, employees just don't feel like the senior leadership keeps them appropriately informed. Again, if we're seeing that as a tool that you need in order to do your job well, that open and honest communication. Two-way communication also is something that only about half of the employees expressed, like, yeah, you know what, I have that in my organization. And interestingly, the comfortability of sharing potentially unpopular opinions, this is a key driver of psychological safety and trust in the workplace. And so we've got mission, but somehow as we work in our organizations, we're just not able to foster the kind of environments where people can really flourish. And this is we work with a very talented organizational development strategist who, you know, oftentimes has to remind CEOs, because we are so stretched thin and have so many different priorities, that, you know, one of the most important stakeholders is your team. So, like, what were to happen if you treated your team like you treated like a board or a committee of something? You know, how might you think about how to communicate with them and bring them into the loop in whatever way? The other aspect that is really inherent in our field is our managers are really well liked, but they're not so effective. So you see here that people feel respected by their immediate manager. This is amazing. They feel cared for. And that's something that's very, that came through also in the comments of this kind of data set. But our managers don't give a regular feedback on how the people they supervise actually perform. Now, when our organizational development people saw this, they were like, you know what, whenever we see that there is a likelihood of there's a positive in that people feel respected and cared for and comfortable with their managers, but there's no feedback loop that's actually critical, it's indicative of kind of like a family business industry. Meaning, like, the personal relationships for us are really important. And it's not so easy to give critical feedback to someone who you're going to see at synagogue tomorrow. And it's a shame, because when we're talking about how to develop leaders, this is literally the recipe for developing leaders. Like, thank you, Center for Creative Leadership in North Carolina, by the way. Yay. It's such a big aspect of it is, what do you do day in, day out? 70% of it is work experience. What is your immediate manager doing? What is the feedback loop that is being cultivated? And what are the risks that you're able to take and stretch that you're able to take in order to develop different muscles, which you all know, because that's the heart of education. I mean, you really are helping people to maximize their potential and make for themselves their own meaning. That's a good manager. And actually, Erica and I were talking, and we have found that the best managers, by the way, are educators. It's like inherent in your guys' DNA and that's something that would be interesting to see if we can take what you guys learn and put it actually as like a manager type of to bring it into some new manager training or something like that. So lastly, as we talk about some of the other aspects of the work, and especially as we look at generational and the gender, there's no secret that we work in an industry where resources are scarce and sacred. Now, there's always going to be a certain level of stretch that we're all going to have to take. And working in the nonprofit sector is not like working the lazy river of work. Sure. But when only 37% of the 10,000 employees say there are enough people to do the work we need to do, that's like everyone needs, a Pesach break, but once a month, that's not okay. And that it's also not sustainable, especially when we talk about the work that we all are doing, which is it's not like an automatic pilot. Like, you're trying to think of very creative things, curriculum that's different, engaging teens in particular. My God, hats off to you, for real. Like, all the different problems and questions and all of those things. It's slow, effortful work. And what we like to show, especially funders, honestly, is the fact that previously, like, if we're looking at the fact that we're stretching our people, the core of our work has to be so thoughtful, so deliberate, and we would argue that we're causing all of us to be really on automatic pilot because there is this nature of real resource constraint. That, I should say, from a gender component, you see that there's a little bit of a gender gap as well. And if you look at from a generational component, really the 30 to 39-year-olds are hammered with being stretched thin. Sorry, Danielle, I saw you going like that. Yes, they're really that's the segment that by far is most stretched. Of course, I have a colleague who's like, yes, and a lot of us are raising families and all that, but kind of interesting to see.
Gali, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Does that have anything to do with maybe an inability or lower ability to say no? Like are people of a certain generation saying no more often than those who are maybe trying to grow in their career and taking on all sorts of things because they want to prove that they have the ability to lead eventually?
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to hear what other people think. That sounds like a great hypothesis. Of course, my mind always goes to what is the board saying no to? If the board, which is entrusted with strategy, really in partnership with the CEO, head of school, executive director, whatever you call the top professional, the heart of strategy is saying no, because you have to say what, you have to focus your resources. So that's where my mind goes, but I'm wondering what other folks think, because that's an interesting hypothesis of this is when you're proving yourself. So it's a culture of yes. Does that resonate for others or something else as we look at this?
Feel free to unmute if you want to. All right. Looks like everyone's listening.
Okay. All right. Okay. So just again, as we think about just the biggest gaps as we look at men and women in the sector and just their different experiences, which is kind of an easy slice to look at. Really, the two that come most starkly to mind are psychological safety. And that really is about speaking up, sharing ideas that are unpopular, asking for help from a team member, and salary and benefits, which men who, it makes sense. If the higher you go, the more you have also transparency around how compensation is set or some of the constraints. And if men are in leadership, then it makes sense that they would have a better understanding or more clear understanding of how compensation is set. But those are the two things that, as we look at all different types of organizations. I mean, you saw it from federation to camp to day school to JCC to Jewish Social Service Agency to synagogue. This is how different people experience really the heart of their work. the last thing that we see around this work is that no matter what we're learning, whether it's differences in the gender experience, the generational experience, we don't have as much about geographic. Although I will say that the family business component of smaller communities is a lot higher, a lot. Like the number around feedback loop between a manager and a direct report. I mean, it just goes way down when we look at smaller communities. Ultimately, what we see is that we have good news and bad news when it comes to the different state of talent in our sector. We have talent that's incredibly proud of our organizations, but they can't wait to leave. 57% of the folks who took this survey now for 3 years want to leave our sector in less than 5 years. That's the 9,500 Jewish organizations. Which, even if it's true or it's not true, it doesn't matter because it means they're not doing their best work now. Right? Like that's like, we want them to be like present and fully in the work that is hard that we're doing. So why do they say they want to leave? These are the top three. When we ask people to list their, right? Yeah, and we're nodding, right? Money. Yeah, more money. I want a career trajectory, work-life balance, especially if you're being stretched thin. And this is the most common. This maps to the most common, the top three excuses that like an HR director would get in an exit interview. And when you do a third-party exit interview, this is what you get, which is people leave organizations because of leadership, confidence in leadership. It isn't necessarily only about money or career advancement or work-life balance. These are the 6 factors that have the biggest gaps between. There are people in the survey who said, you know what, I'm staying. The Jewish community is my home. And then there are people who are like, I'm out at the first opportunity. And we wanted to see where were the gaps. Like, what do the people who said they're staying have that those who said I'm leaving don't have? And these are the 6 largest gaps. And it has to do with honest two-way communication, being a valued member of the organization, having confidence in your immediate manager. Notice what's not here. Compensation, like even fair compensation. There are a lot of questions that we ask in the survey just about like to what extent do you understand how this type of stuff works. Ultimately, that's like what we see is people leave organizations oftentimes because of just an ineffective manager. And this is from, I'm totally dating myself, Office Space. Anyone? Saw that? Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately what we see is that this goes back to why Leading Edge really wanted to focus on CEOs, in that CEOs are a critical part of the organization. Obviously, there's so many new ones who are coming in. And what we've seen, and this is a picture of cohort 2, we have a cohort-based like leadership development program, like a Wexner basically for new CEOs. And what we've seen with new CEOs is because it takes a while to find a replacement. And sometimes, Fred, we have to go back to the person who retired and say, come back in, right? And a lot of it is because of the posture that we have, not only toward leaders, but also what we just saw also toward managers. It's we hire someone and we're like, Danielle, prove to us we hired the right person, right? Instead of how can we support your leadership? What do you need in order to succeed? Because your success is our success, definitely from a CEO and certainly if you manage anyone. And that's the shift that we're going for. I just want to do a time check because like, am I just talking on and on here, Erica? Or are we okay with it?
We are, yeah, we've got 15 more minutes. If I could just take you back to the couple slides before, do we have any idea how the Jewish nonprofit world compares to the for-profit other world, either related to the leadership piece or the 3 reasons that people are either happy or unhappy with their work?
Yeah. So this is what we know. And I should say it's not an apples to apples kind of comparison. even though what this tool is administered to all different types of organizations. So we do have a way of mapping ourselves onto that, but these are specific questions that we only ask. I will say this, that when there is a practice within an organization for like a chief HR person to do exit interviews, these are the top 3 reasons that are given when an employee is like, Danielle, I'm picking on you, sorry. Why do you want to leave? Well, more money, I'm working like, I don't know, 7 days a week and, maybe a little bit more work-life balance, or, I really want to become a CEO one day and I know that I have to go out in order to go up. That's totally fine. When there's the relationship and like, let's say, Erica, you are the chief HR officer for Danielle. But let's say you retain, let's say you retain a third party exit interview, like a totally neutral body who all they care about is the real reason why you're actually leaving. So either it's a push or a pull there. This is the reason. These are the top reasons. People leave organizations because of bad bosses. And a lot of times what ends up happening is that people will leave, or more and more, I should say, people will leave because of, let's say, money, and then they will come back. They're called boomerang employees, actually. They'll come back because they're like, you know what, I had it good. My manager really invested in me. He asked a lot of questions about my career development. Like, okay, maybe it was 5,000. It has to be like, if it's double the salary, whatever's the material difference, there's a different kind of equation. But we cite the more concrete reasons of like, oh, they left because of money, or people are not coming into the nonprofit sector because of money. And to some extent it's true. Like, like this is a perfect segment. Teen educators, early childhood educators, like there's a way to go for just getting some salary parity. And when push comes to shove, that's not the thing that's going to make a person want to leave an organization. It's usually the leadership. Yeah. Okay, so now we go to the, no, you know what, I'm just going to skip over that. Just 2 more slides, I promise. As we pan out to the different ways in which just work is changing. A couple years ago, Deloitte, another consulting firm, we love them because they declare things with confidence and therefore it must be so. They said, you know what, the career ladder is dead. And now it's a career lattice. And what we're seeing, especially with millennials, is exactly that. We're seeing organizations that don't necessarily have the loyalty that they once had to employees. And we're seeing employees who want to do like tours of duties, 2 to 3 years at a certain organization, or a certain, to gather a certain skill set, or to work with Fred because he's awesome. And then I'm going to go and I'm, going to work with Jen or whatever. And this is really like the nature of how our organizations and how the way that we structure our days really needs to change from this like linear, very clear, I'm starting at Federation at 22. I'm going to climb the ladder in some way. I'll maybe go to Cleveland Federation and then Baltimore and then maybe Denver. And then maybe I'll become like a San Francisco Federation exec. And then I'll retire from there, which you can see a lot of the especially boomer generation had these types of trajectories, or the JCC movement or the camping movement. And that day is done. I mean, really that era is just not, we're just not playing in that same kind of trajectory anymore. And when we think about where are the areas that have real great energy, there are leadership factories within our community that are really developing talent in creative ways that is going to build the future of this community. And a big swath of that is Jewish youth groups, camps, Hillel, JCC, the core of your all work. Day schools, absolutely. What we did here was we asked our 10,000 employees, the ones that have identify as Jewish and they self-identify, which of these different programs have you participated with in the past? So like Birthright, Hillel, Jewish Day School, that, and where have you worked? And you can just see like camp is magic. It's just magic. I mean, it really, in fact, we're hiring someone right now, and we have 2 candidates with like 2 finalists, and one was an associate director of a camp. And I was like, this person's a Swiss Army knife. I mean, they can do anything. Like, we know that. Like, so I just, I was very, very excited. I'll stop sharing my screen here. Very excited to speak with this group, because this is, you all are doing the work that needs to be done in terms of really building the next generation in a way that is, that we see just creates different on-ramps to our community, and hopefully will create a different, a next chapter for our community that's going to be wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Gali, so much. And we'll just open up the floor for a minute or two. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand. Fred did both.
Of the slide that said 57% want to leave in less than 5 years, I don't know if that includes or excludes CEOs, but either way, if you look at 57% who want to leave, plus those who are asked to leave, and you look at 75 to 90% of CEOs who plan to retire and those who are asked to leave,
yes,
it looks like there's a big problem.
It's massive. Yes, Fred. This is what keeps me up at night. This is what made the funders be like, oh my God. Exactly. That's it.
From top to bottom.
That's the heart of it. And you all are educating the people who are, I mean, they're going to lead us to the promised land in different ways, and they already are. But yeah, it's a massive problem. A lot of churn, and we don't ask a lot of the people we don't manage their performance. We saw, right? Managers don't necessarily hold people accountable. So we don't even have a mechanism by which we can say, you know what, you haven't done the things that are necessary for someone to be playing at our level. But yeah, it's a massive problem. And opportunity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe that's the opportunity as we're looking at the 20 to 39-year-olds who are really active and engaged in this whole learning, growing way.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are now coming into some of those positions and really rewriting much of how organizations have run in the past based on, just being informed in a very different generational kind of way.
Totally. Yeah. And we see examples of that, right? Like Jewish Education Project, David Breifman, right, as new CEO. We have several kind of BJE or another day school, GAN Academy. And then you've got Mark Baker being, Combined Jewish Philanthropy Federation CEO, taking over for Barry Schraeg in Boston. I mean, there are a lot of different ways in which younger folk are definitely and that 20 to 39 slice is getting opportunities to lead in ways that we haven't seen before.
Could I ask a question?
Please.
I wanted to explore that, what you were talking about in terms of camps. I definitely see that in my own children are in that age range of 20 to 35, not 39 yet, but I mean, and 20 is long gone. And I see for all three of them that their camp leadership experience has been in the field of education, in the field of the startup world, and in the business world has been incredibly helpful to them. Is that significantly different from if they had, let's say, a leadership role in a school? Camp somehow is different, and I just wanted to kind of put my finger on why that is.
I mean, like the Foundation for Jewish Camp has probably an answer for that, but I'm wondering, I mean, you all know, like somehow it molds, it gives a lot of responsibility and a lot of freedom to young kids who I would suspect have an understanding of what kind of an awesome task they're being tasked with. But I'm wondering what other folks think about, because it's true. Camp is it really is magical. Like
I think it allows you to lead at an earlier stage than many other fields. And I think experiencing leading leads you to better leading.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think there's something that most of the people working in camp start as campers, so they really work their way up. You went from a camper who had good relationships with people above you, and you kept moving up that ladder,
Mm-hmm.
which most of the other different kind of organizations don't have.
Right.
Well, and I think that camp environment, being an immersive, day in, day out kind of environment where you're living with people, you're also adapting, like the social skills that are learned through living with people on a regular basis that you don't normally throughout the year really do come into play, I think, as a leader.
Mm-hmm. It's also
So
fun.
I just want to just throw a monkey wrench into this as someone who's sort of at the end of my career. The changes that I've seen over the last 10 years, that I can't get kids to go to camp anymore because they have marching bands and they have sports, and the things that used to just be within the school year has now expanded through the summer. And whereas, 15 years ago, we had 30 kids from our community going to Jewish summer camp. Now maybe we have 5. And it's just, for me, it's just every year gets more and more challenging to get the kids on a regular basis to come to our programs. The programs get better, but it also gets harder to get our teens to come, and getting them to experience Israel in the summer. I'm competing with things that I thought I would never compete with. So, the 20 to 39-year-olds I get, because they had that joy of camp. But the kids who are coming up now through our schools, I don't know if we're going to be as lucky with them.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry.
Interesting.
Bad note to end on, but it's a concern.
No, and then something else we'll have to fill in. I mean, we saw birthright. 18% of the employees have gone on birthright. If you look at the 39 and below, that jumps to 33%.
Mm-hmm.
So a third of the professionals, like, that was their first experience, and it's when we were starting the PG library, we always asked, like, okay, is this going to be like, is this a different kind of on ramp to and connection of the family and therefore the kids to somehow the Jewish community and who knows where else. But yeah, it's I think part of what I think you beautifully show is that it used to, like, the world really is changing. It used to be like clockwork in many ways. I mean, literally. Oh, Reifman, I was actually just talking about you. And now it's more like a swirl. And that's where the creativity, like, that's where the opportunity really comes in of, how can we help people connect in different ways, and keep in mind some of the fundamentals that, we saw that we don't do, like giving feedback to the people we manage, and, because it's not comfortable. So.
All right. Well, David, don't take offense, but now that you came on,
we're done.
Wrap up. But as I said at the very beginning, we have recorded this session, so we'll be able to share it on Facebook and in other spaces and places. Gali, thank you so much for your research, for your dedication, for your clarity in presentation, and really helping us figure out what it is that we're looking at and how we as teen professionals may be able to help the trajectory and potentially even be able to work through the situation that Susan brought up as well. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you all for joining us today. And if you haven't already done so, sign up for the conference. Take care.
Thank you all. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Bye-bye.